Story 1. I really needed the pancake recipe from the women's prayer breakfast at my grandmother's church, and I was not allowed to join the prayer breakfast because I have a penis. So, I pretended to be a 74-year-old woman named Gladys on the church's online message board. The year was 2004. Story 2. I did once on OkCupid just to confirm my suspicion that the man-to-woman ratio was well over 10 to 1. It turned out to be closer to 1,000 to 1. Story 3. I loved playing Halo online but was pretty terrible at it. Nearly nobody was willing to help, so I made a pink Master Chief and gave myself a girl-like name. I received more help than I could ever hope for. I did end up with a few random inappropriate pictures, though. My go-to response was always, "My mom said I can't date until high school." Story 4. It was during my RuneScape years. I wanted free items and knew some players would love to give a girl free rune scimitars and a couple of thousand coins. Not proud of it, but that's how it was back then. Story 5. I created a female profile on a dating site about 20 years ago to see for myself how unpleasant many men really were. I had convinced myself that it could not be that bad. It was that bad and worse. I received over 100 messages in 2 days. About 60 to 70% of them were extremely vile. So, research. I could not delete that profile quickly enough. Story 6. I did not intentionally do it, but my name is Martin Stephen Jones. On a social media platform, I used my initials and last name, Martin Stephen Jones, and was often mistaken for female. It was eye-opening. Story 7. When I played massively multiplayer online games, I noticed people would go out of their way to help women, so I started pretending to be a woman. I went from mostly being ignored to having a guild with people offering to carry me through content I couldn't do yet to help me gear up. In my experience, for every one guy who would get nasty and say things like, "Make me a sandwich, girl," there were a dozen white knights who would jump in to defend me before I could even respond. Story 8. I was in my early 20s when To Catch a Predator first aired in the early 2000s. I wanted to see how bad it really was because the group they worked with acted like adult men were contacting their decoys instantly. So I went into a group chat room about movies and pretended to be a 15-year-old girl. A 30-year-old man started private chatting with me. He asked if I went to church, if I was baptized or born again, and talked about God and his life for about 15 minutes while I just nodded along in the chat. I was about to leave when, after all that talk about Jesus, he asked, "Are you a virgin? And how big are your breasts?" I realized it was true. The first person who messaged me after I gave my age, sex, and location was a grown man wanting to have a sexually charged conversation with a child. I don't know if he was actually religious or was just trying to use that to make the girl feel like he was a trustworthy person. Story 9. Free stuff. Simple. I remember in Final Fantasy XI, I was given millions of gil, escorted through all the danger zones, and assisted with job quests because this group assumed I was a girl and I never corrected them. Story 10. I wanted to know exactly what girls were getting on dating apps whenever I sent a message that I thought was good. It was not like I thought I was Michael B. Jordan or anything, but I knew my humor and my depth and thought I was pretty good. So if the words were not being read, there either had to be many guys or there were really good-looking men around. This was before the confirmation that girls get thousands of messages all day. Story 11. I don't pretend, but I do like playing as girl characters in games. That, however, does not stop people from assuming who I am without asking for confirmation and treating me like a girl. I've had people follow me around and flirt with me and it's like, dude, look at my username. I know anyone can have any username, but come on. It's at least ambiguous enough to warrant asking. Most of the time it's harmless, but it can get really annoying. It's also super weird sometimes because I can be text chatting in a lobby and wonder why everyone is so responsive and friendly to me and less to others. Then I remember what my character looks like. It makes my skin crawl a bit. I'm just trying to play games. Don't make it weird. Story 12. I guess this does not include me, but I enjoy playing as female characters in video games or watching shows where the main character is a girl. It is interesting to see from their perspective. Since I was a kid, I grew up with many action movies where men were the superheroes and saviors. Now seeing a girl defeating bad guys such as Ellie from The Last of Us, Lara Croft from Tomb Raider, and Alice from Resident Evil is both impressive and exciting. However, I never pretend to be a girl in online gaming. Story 13. Growing up in the 1990s and 2000s in the world of internet chat rooms, I just wanted to talk to people. Ironically, I met a few, presumably women, who were always willing to chat and, like me, were tired of trying to have conversations only to receive age, sex, location as a response. In their case, they would get hit on or receive inappropriate pictures. In my case, I never got to talk to anybody. So I started telling strangers I was a woman. I did not do it for long because once they realized they were not going to get a romantic or sexual encounter online, they would move on. Story 14. Video game female models are usually more attractive, and people will give you free items or help you gain levels if you pretend well enough. Story 15. Just like others have said, back in 2000 or so, I watched my girlfriend play Phantasy Star online on Dreamcast and receive gifts left and right for no reason other than having a female character name. There was no voice chat. When she lost interest pretty quickly, I just picked up her character and continued playing. Story 16. I was a naive teenager. Girls received more compliments and positive interactions on their posts. I decided that sounded better than receiving nothing all the time. It worked. Story 17. You get flamed less when people think you are a woman in League of Legends. At least that is my experience. I do not try to pretend to be a woman, but my username makes people think I am for some reason. I generally do not correct them. It does get super weird when someone is trying to flirt or is being vulgar. Then I typically say I am a man. Story 18. The only time I ever experienced this was in college when a young lady spread rumors that I was pursuing her when I was not. I confronted her and told her to stop. She became defensive and pretended not to understand what I was talking about. I thought it would end after that confrontation, but it did not. I asked some female friends if any of them, whom she did not know, would be willing to pretend to be my girlfriend and tell her to back off, but none agreed. So, I created a fake female account and messaged her, telling her to find her own man and leave me alone. After a contentious back and forth, the rumors stopped. I do not think I ever deleted that account, but I have not used it in decades. Story 19. I didn't intentionally pretend to be a girl. My friends and I jokingly called me Sweet Sexy. So when I created an online chess account, I used that name because I thought it was funny. I never considered that people would assume I was an attractive woman and flirt with me. At first, I thought the online chess community was very friendly. Then I put two and two together and created a new account with a generic name. It was not such a friendly community anymore. Story 20. Not really pretending to be a woman, but it started when I was playing Rocket League and got a crown as an ornament on my car. I made the colors pink for Team Red and purple for Team Blue, and changed my Steam username to Princess Poopy Pants because men also have the right to feel like a princess. Story 21. I know someone who pretended to be a 14-year-old girl to get a PlayStation 4 from a pedophile involved in blackmail. Story 22. My voice is pretty high-pitched, so I can easily voice myself as a female. As a gamer in the gaming world, women are either 1. Treated like divine gods due to desperate lonely men, or 2. Treated poorly for just being women in a male-dominated platform. I noticed I could get items and gifts for free or buy something cheaper than usual, so I took advantage of it. Frankly, as a guy who used to be in that place, sometimes pain is the best teacher for them to learn not to believe everything they see or hear on the internet. Story 23. My friend created a fake Facebook profile of a girl and added all the guys we knew in the area. He gave me the password, and I told all the guys to meet me at Starbucks on a certain day. I went also. All the guys showed up looking for the girl whose profile we made and then started to look at each other weird. We were young, stupid, and bored. Story 24. I created a female high elf wizard on EverQuest because of the appealing graphics, and the unintended consequence was an unbelievable amount of free items and assistance from random players. Story 25. Someone I knew on Discord catfished men on Tinder because the attention he received from the app gave him a high. He was the strangest person I have met in a while. Story 26. For academics. If I post a question as a man, no one replies. I post the same question from a woman's account. Voila! I get replies from 7 random men with detailed explanations. This world is unfair to men. Story 27. I used to play an online flash game called Sissy Fight 2000, in which all the avatars were female. I felt strange about giving my female avatar a male name, so I called her Rosie instead because it suited the colors and skin tone I had chosen. This caused everyone to assume I was a girl, and eventually I grew tired of correcting them. Story 28. We did it on internet relay chat back in the day. Name yourself Kim 17 female and immediately someone random would hit on you. Play around with them and ask for a number to call. We would find some other creeper doing the same and give them that number. Laugh out loud after that. Story 29. Youth, attention, and horniness are a powerful combination. It was in an erotic roleplay space on internet relay chat. No one asked for verification back then. Everyone was just trying to enjoy themselves, and I had no problem attempting to write from the female perspective. Plus, it was always easier to find willing writing partners when I played as a woman. Eventually, I was called out by 1 or 2 people who took that space more seriously and insisted that your actual gender matched your chat gender, so I stopped. I was still able to find willing writing partners writing as a man, but it took much more effort. Story 30. In most online areas, people just assume who I am until proven otherwise, and I grew tired of correcting them. So, I used this power for mischief. Story 31. I had a female avatar in a massively multiplayer online game. Suddenly, all these guys were asking me to join their guilds and were gifting me gear and gold. I kept my identity vague for as long as I could to benefit from that opportunity. Story 32. Back in 2015, I let my morbid curiosity get the best of me and created a Tinder profile of a cute girl. I used it for a day and did not respond to any messages. It is common knowledge now, but back then it was eye-opening for me just how many options women had and have. Story 33. I knew a man in the military who did this to extort gifts from an unsuspecting person, which he would then give to his girlfriend. He was always in trouble and falling further behind. Story 34. I saw in my boyfriend's chats that a woman claiming to be a prisoner was writing to him, trying to get money from him. Story 35. I would not say pretending to be a woman, but I have chosen female characters in video games because sometimes I prefer to look at beautiful things. I do not always need to represent my true self in fantasy. Story 36. I once set up a fake dating profile on Tinder as an average-looking woman to compare the experience after using dating apps for a while and questioning things. I did not catfish anyone. I just wanted to see the differences in match rates, message responsiveness, and so on. I stopped the few short conversations I had and closed the account after a couple of days. The experience was very similar to the first time I put myself out there on Grindr with an actual profile picture. Hundreds of responses in a day. That account remained open. I fear most straight men, while I am bisexual, have seldom experienced being wanted or desired, and it is a pity. While women face plenty of negative bias in life, they also benefit from a significant amount of positive bias. Story 37. I have never pretended, but the reasoning is obvious. Sad, desperate, and pathetic men give you free items. Story 38. When I was a kid, back when we used America Online, I think I joined a few chat rooms a few times. I got bored of that real quick and stopped. I was probably just curious about the role reversal and wanted to see how I would be treated differently. Story 39. Usually, if I pick a female avatar, it is because they are slimmer and do not take up as much space on the screen. I would rather look at a woman for the hours that I am playing instead of a man. Female avatars also usually have more fun cosmetic options. All of that to say, I do not try to impersonate a woman. People would just assume. Sometimes I cannot be bothered to correct them if I do not expect to see them again. I have received a random gift in the game once or twice, though. Story 40. It feels nice. I liked having people refer to me as a girl and use she pronouns. I enjoyed being able to act a certain way and the way people treated me. The only downside was not being able to voice chat. But I really loved being a girl in an online, massively multiplayer online game. Story 41. I played this massively multiplayer online game in the 1990s called Nexus TK. My friend convinced me to play as a female character because you could teleport to each other if you were married in the game. Eventually, I just went along with it, though I do not know why. I certainly did not get any special treatment. I was just really into the character, and there were no gender changes in the game at that time. Story 42. Not intentionally. I was just my usual self. People thought I was a girl. I did not realize that was the perception for a couple of years. By the time I did, it was too late. Story 43. I wanted to see how people treated women in World of Warcraft, so I created a female character with a female name. People were offering me gold within about 10 minutes of starting the character. Story 44. When I was younger, I used to play World of Warcraft. I played as a male warrior, but one night when my server was down for maintenance, I joined a different server and, as a joke, created what I thought was the opposite: a female priest. I also gave the character an overly feminine name. I ended up liking the priest class much more than the warrior, so I continued playing as that character. However, I often found that when I was in a raid group, raid leaders would flirt with me. When I revealed that I was a man, they would become angry and remove me from the group. So, when playing with unfamiliar players, I chose to keep quiet about being male. Story 45. When I used to play multiplayer games, it intimidated and distracted male players. They would also underestimate me, and I would rather look at an attractive girl. Story 46. From the time I was about 12, I sometimes pretended to be a girl and chat on internet relay chat, basically just assuming their personality. I also imagined their sensory experience in an autogenophilia way. I used to do this with specific women in mind. I think it allowed me to feel like I had control over my desire for certain women and crushes. The idea was, she holds no power over me in real life if I can do whatever I want with or as her in fantasy. Having someone else buy into the fantasy of whoever is on my mind legitimizes the feeling. Making it social instead of just voyeuristic is like nudging a friend to check out a woman I find attractive. We all crave feeling that what we are doing is okay. Most social posturing seeks affirmation. Story 47. In the earlier internet days, I did it because I was genuinely curious about what a woman's online experience was like. It was very unpleasant. This is why it is disappointing that in 2025, it is still common for many men to pretend that experiences almost universally shared by women do not exist, simply because they have not experienced them themselves. Story 48. I don't pretend to be a woman, but when I am just showing my backside, I find it amusing when men think I am a woman and ask to see my private parts. It is even funnier when they get upset about it. Story 49. Back in 2014, I did this just to see the number of matches I got on Tinder. I wanted to know what my competition was and what opening lines guys were using. In 2 days, with a basic profile picture, I had about 80 swipe rights. It gave me a new perspective on online dating and how women have almost unlimited matches while men only get a handful. Story 50. I was dating a woman who wanted to try a female-female-male threesome, or potentially a female-female, but she didn't really want anything to do with the search process. With her permission, we created an online dating profile for her, but I would be the one using it. I sorted out potential matches, and if something seemed promising, I brought it to her. Despite the profile clearly stating that I was a woman looking for women, I received many messages from men. Some prefaced their messages with, "I know you're looking for a woman, but," and some never even bothered with that. It gave me a good perspective on what women deal with on dating apps. 98% of the messages all read exactly the same, and I knew the men sending them were most likely dishonest. Story 51. In the early America Online days, it was to help a friend of mine deal with a stalker. She had just started college and had attracted a guy who would not take a hint to go away. So we hatched a plan. She gave me her sign-in, and I used it to flirt outrageously with the guy until he revealed his true unhinged nature. He exposed the most vile parts of his soul because he thought he was impressing my friend, all while she watched and we sort of bonded over the situation. It was a terrible experience. At the end of it, I told him this was a man, that I was deeply disappointed in him, Informed him that I knew both his academic advisor and housemaster, and that he should leave well enough alone and straighten himself out. I let him get upset a bit before I blocked him. I have no idea what happened to him ultimately. I stopped paying attention after my friend told me he was leaving her alone. She never mentioned him again, so it seemed like it worked out. Story 52. I have a lot of female friends, and they told me about how despicable men are online. "Oh, come on," I exclaimed. "There is no way they are this bad. You have to be exaggerating." So they convinced me to make a profile as a girl to see for myself. It was eye-opening. It was sad, gross, infuriating, and kind of funny. Story 53. I signed up for a dating site called Plenty of Fish, and no matter what I did, I never got any responses. So I signed up again as a woman to see what sort of messages other men were sending. I was inundated with about half the messages being extremely sexual and offensive, and the other half consisting of 1 or 2 words. Story 54. I have been called a girl and did not correct them. Usually, it is the fake feminist bullies who do it, so there are more important things to discuss than who I am. Story 55. Wait, do you mean to ask if the text is in conversation with other people online? Or if it is about choosing to be a female model character? Story 56. I played the paid version of Online Diplomacy, the classic board game. All gameplay was via email or messenger apps. At the time, the player base was overwhelmingly male. The negotiation phase involved extensive communication with a lot of back and forth. Games could last weeks. I started playing as a female because I noticed other players were more likely to ally with you against a third party if they thought you were female. This was not due to romantic interest, but because many male players had a soft spot for females in the game and perhaps believed they were more easily influenced and less experienced. I never revealed my gender, but I was good at adding a slight feminine tone to my messages, and I could tell that other players treated me differently. Story 57. The more confusing information there is about me, the harder it is for people and corporations with harmful intentions to build an accurate profile of me. It is pattern confusion and data poisoning. Story 58. Played as women sometimes in massively multiplayer online games because man in plate armor gets old quickly. Never try to deliberately mimic the other gender, however. Story 59. I've never tagged anyone online pretending to be a woman, but back in the day, my flatmates and I would do little things online like set up an old profile for a really average-looking, boring-sounding woman just to see the volume of interest it generated. Note: the response was absolutely insane, and the messages were hilarious. I've always received comments about my eyes being really nice and even that it looks like I'm wearing eyeshadow or mascara, which I never do. So we opened Omegle and had the camera close to my face so all you could see were my eyes, making it hard to tell whether I was a man or a woman. The number of men who jumped straight in with messages like, "Hey gorgeous, beautiful eyes, show me the rest of your body," was ridiculous. It really highlighted some of the things women have to put up with online. Story 60. Someone in a server I am active in had heavily sexualized women as his profile picture and turned out to be a man. He never used his voice or anything. I think it is a kink or fetish. Story 61. I did it on a whim once and kept it up for a while because it was nice not being invisible. People were more proactive about interacting with me. Most people were nice, and in general, it was just a good experience. I only stopped because I felt bad when some guy started trying to give me stuff in the game we were playing. It felt uncomfortable because I figured he might have a crush or something. Story 62. Haha, yes, I have always wondered this too. Probably for fun, curiosity, or just to see how people treat them differently. Story 63. Look, I got bored playing male characters on my 10th playthrough of Skyrim. I thought being a woman would make a nice change for once. Only in video games do I pick woman characters sometimes. Most of the time I just stick with male characters because I am a man myself. So by default, I relate more to male characters. 9 times out of 10, I normally just stick with a male character in video games. But sometimes I feel like being the woman character for a change. If you mean on social media, I do not recall myself doing that or having any reason to do so. Story 64. I have only done it on chitchat.gg because at some point people start the message by asking for gender and hang up if it is a man. So I say I am a woman to chat with this random person. The conversations are usually dull, but I do not have anything better to do with my time. Story 65. My ex was quite petite, but when she was younger, she was often targeted by inappropriate individuals. We both knew this, so I came up with the idea of scamming these people. I bought and used old Instagram and Snapchat accounts from friends and online sources. My girlfriend at the time agreed to help, though she was still skeptical. I gave her all the money we earned. We split the profits evenly, but I usually spent my half on her. I used the Tor browser and had a very convincing female voice with voice changers. I played games and interacted with them, while my girlfriend sent short videos to avoid suspicion. Since there was a real girl involved, it was almost completely foolproof. After a while, I wanted to meet some of these individuals in the UK. I planned to bring friends who trained in kickboxing and Muay Thai to rob them, but my girlfriend did not consent, so I didn't proceed. She was essential to the scam. She provided the physical presence, and I was the strategist. Eventually, I stopped because I left her and did not want to continue without her consent. The experience was entertaining. These individuals often sent me money through gift cards for games when I played with them on Discord calls. I would then sell the gift cards online. Sometimes they sent money directly, but usually through other means. Some were so obsessed they sent gifts to a bogus address I provided, and I would retrieve them. They sent shoes, clothes, sweets, and other items, which I always sold without opening because their safety was uncertain. Story 66. I knew a person who played a female night elf in World of Warcraft and pretended to be a woman. He received free items from some players. Story 67. I was lonely, and men offered me free gold as a female character. I got too deep into it due to depression, and I genuinely hated myself. I found an easy way to get attention from both sides. Story 68. In my opinion, pretending to be a girl online just for fun is pretty creepy. The explanations justifying such behavior are strange. Story 69. Never pretend, but sometimes people assume I play online games, and I never correct them. People treat you better in some games and worse in others. Story 70. Well, I did not go out of my way to do so, but one time someone assumed I was a girl. I decided to let him act the way he wanted and then berated him for it. Story 71. I have a conspiracy theory that the opposite is more common, but the moderators here shut that discussion down every time. If you read this, check back in a few hours and see for yourself. Story 72. Mostly men online role-playing girls. In the early days, there were not many girls on the internet, so I assumed every girl was a guy pretending to be one because the likelihood was high. I always knew there were some exceptions, but before Facebook and smartphones, it was pretty rare. That said, I think most girls pretended to be guys to avoid being pestered and stalked by unwanted attention. Story 73. Played in EVE Online and noticed different reactions from players. Went to low and null security space in a new ship and was destroyed so fast that there was no time to react. The female alternate character was given advice, 500,000 ISK, and left to fly out. Both joined the same corporation. The female alternate was constantly hit on by two persistent players who left nothing to the imagination with their lust-filled fantasies. Had to respond as the gruff male alternate for them to understand. A friend in real life mentioned something similar, so created two accounts on a dating site, Sam and Samantha. Sam got no interest. Samantha received proposals, explicit pictures, and inappropriate offers. Confirmed that most men behave poorly. Story 74. I don't pretend to be a girl online, but I have received many messages from random people over the years asking about me or if I am actually the girl in my profile picture. Alina Baraz. I always have to break the news to them that I am just a random guy, not a musician. I assume some people think I am a girl because my profile picture is of a girl. Story 75. When I was a child, I was really bored, so I changed my name on games like Clash of Clans and another dragon base building game. I would pretend to be a girl in world chat. I tried to catfish guys and get them to switch to private chat. Catfishing is fun. I used to do it on Bumble and S'more too. Story 76. When I was young, I pretended to be a girl because I believed I could form better relationships and experience more meaningful interactions than if I were a boy. I also felt I could express myself more freely. Story 77, well, sort of by accident. I created a female avatar on PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and spoke to my teammates so they knew I was a guy. I took a break and returned years later, but all my friends had left. Honestly, I barely talked at all, almost zero. For the most part, people are chill, but some are odd. First, I will break it down into two main levels, whether I am having a good game or not. Having reached Conqueror rank more than once, my gameplay ranges from just killing it to flat-out bad. The better I play, the less people say anything. But you still have the guys trying to woo my avatar. I get a ton of comments like, holy shit, chicks can wreck shit, and all kinds of variations in English, Spanish, Hindi, and Russian. I could almost write a book about this. Some men are really misogynistic even when my kill/death ratio beats theirs and I took highest kills or most valuable player. All men are equally thirsty, but what's odd is that most want to befriend my avatar. Americans, funny enough, have a small subset that hates women. They assume you are a terrible gamer and are angry whether you are or not. If you play badly, they mess with you. If you perform well, they still talk trash, saying it's a fluke or blaming something else to justify their hate. And mind you, I am not talking at all. I am just playing the game as I normally would, somewhere between dominating and bad. Also, unless someone is really terrible, I go out of my way to revive people. We need to get better at that. I keep not talking just to hear more trash talk one way or another. It's truly interesting. If I had more dedication, I could probably write a book. But this is exactly how guys talk when they think a girl is in the room, and it's amazing to see it, even if accidentally. Some conversations were entirely in their native language, so of course I don't know what they talked about. My comments refer only to conversations that were obviously flirting with the girl in broken English, and then returning to their native language with their friends. Also, solo players never talk. The only ones who talk are those in groups with friends. Seriously, there's a study here if anyone wants to start one. Story 78. I did it during the early internet days and got myself some freebies on Ultima Online and Ragnarok Online. The thirst during the dial-up era was real. So why? To get free items because I noticed the power in laughter. Story 79. When I was 14, I went on a chat site and used the username Christina18. I would receive private messages. I tricked a man into paying for my RuneScape membership. I did it only once and it was $7. Story 80. To distract attention from someone during a toxic League of Legends game, for people were asking inappropriate questions of someone with a feminine username. I pretended to be a girl as well and kept talking throughout the entire game. Story 81. I was a teenager on Yahoo Chat, and the show To Catch a Predator inspired my friends and me to try to bait someone. We ended up sending inappropriate pictures after encouraging them. Story 82. Well, I did it with my friend when I was about 13 to make fun of older men. I haven't done it since. I know a man who made a few $1,000s pretending to be a girl on dating sites, though. Story 83. Trolling a creepy player in a game who thought I was a woman. This will make him think twice next time he sends strange messages to women. Story 84. I imagine it is for money or a lack of attention. I, of course, have no idea how women function, beyond sometimes putting extra letters on their words, but I do that too, so I could not pull this off convincingly. Story 85. My friends and I were joking with a person who was sending explicit photos in exchange for ratings on iFunny back in 2016. Story 86. I cross-posted, with permission, a content creator's work to a specialty kink subreddit, and for years people have been sending me direct messages asking if I want to chat in a not safe for work context. I actually titled the post Not Original Content Source Username, so it should be perfectly clear. I often just play along with them because after the 20th person, I got bored of explaining. Story 87. I didn't really pretend to be a woman. I had a tag with the boys, meaning my English as a second language/English-speaking board team. The matches usually turned out relatively one-sided, obviously. The tag wasn't really feminine, but it made fun of the whole e-girl Twitch trend back in the day. when women streamed on Twitch in very revealing clothes and did not even play the games themselves. My name in the game was neither male nor female. People still thought we were women and got really mad because they did not like losing, especially not to women. It was really funny, so we kept the tag while playing public. Story 88. I have always identified more with female characters than with male characters. Male characters often feel flat because men tend to bottle up their emotions. Women are more expressive, so it has always been easier for me to relate to them. I did some writing in my 20s, self-published a few novels, and wrote some fanfiction. When I started writing short stories, I would always make the main character male since I identified as male at the time. However, every story's main character eventually evolved into someone just like me. With female characters, I could create in-depth, varied, compelling, and unique characters. That has worked quite well for me over the years. Story 89. To prank a high school friend who we then absolutely roasted for sending inappropriate pictures, we concocted hints that would have led someone thinking carefully to believe it was his friends pranking him. Story 90. As a joke and social experiment for one of my buddy's YouTube channels, we all used a female voice filter. He never posted it, but we had some pretty good reactions during some games. Story 91. It depends on the age. The younger they are, the less inclined they are to know about a woman's anatomy. At that time, for most men, it is about themselves. They are more focused on their own pleasure. They have little understanding of how the female anatomy works and are lazy about that. As they get older, however, they want to know more. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.